If you're on a property, no one wants, you have one bathroom.
Brides are not dreaming about bathrooms.
Exactly. So I feel like bathrooms for all your guests, I think you need to kind of look and venture out into that area of, are we doing a trailer or a washroom trailer?
Are you okay with porta potties?
That's also an option though.
It's
There's
an
some
option.
nice way. You could dress them up. I don't know.
How would you dress up a porta potty?
I've seen some things on Pinterest. Put like a tent over it.
All right. Let's talk rental process. Let's talk some boring stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's informative and a bit boring.
Yeah. But I feel like it is boring, but I feel like people don't know it and people want to know it and should know it.
It's not boring at all.
Yeah.
It's important. It's required.
And sometimes it's what people don't know about.
Yes. Okay.
Like sometimes it is deposits or deliveries or services, all of that people always, I feel like, ask us, what's the tea?
Great. The rental process.
Yes, the rental process.
How does it
Dive
start?
right in.
How do you get a quote?
Well,
What's the best way to get a quote going?
I feel like, especially for rentals, you can get a quote fast and however you want. Over the phone, you could browse our catalog online and add things to your cart and do it that way. Or you can email us. So I feel like we'll work with you. Like however you want to grab the quote, you can.
Can I call in?
You can call in. I feel like that's the best way to do it. In my favorite way, I guess.
You're a caller.
I'm a caller. But also the rental experts at the desk will help you through all of that. They will tell you what the next steps are. They'll tell you what you may be forgetting or
Do you think
may
a
want to
call
consider.
is better than in person?
No, in person is, no, because of the actual shop itself. Like you can come in and you can see sometimes we have tent displays. Sometimes we have all different options and what we carry. So especially for your wedding, I feel like you want to see it. So
let's sidetrack a little bit about the showroom and why it's great to come into the showroom. How often does it change?
I feel like it changes with the seasons, but not necessarily the 4 seasons. It's kind of like event seasons. Does that make sense? So wedding season, corporate season, holidays, all of that. So we kind of switch it over, I would say, every 3 to 4 months.
Yep.
And we're constantly refreshing because things get taken away, because they get rented, because as soon as it's on display, people want it.
Yep.
So I feel like we're always constantly, every time you would come in, I think you would see something new and exciting.
And it's just inspiring.
Yeah. And then we have the DIY.
It's a great place to be. It's a great place. I remember years and years ago when I first started, one of the wedding planners used to tell her clients, look around the showroom and see what you like and choose the things that you like, but also pinpoint the things you do not like. And so I just think it's a great tool. It's very well done.
Yeah.
And it's a great space to be inspired and just kind of make decisions of what you do want, what you don't want, and
get all the wheels working. But I also, going back to what you just said, knocking things off your list. It is, I feel like you're doing 2 things. You're knocking off what you don't like, but you're also knocking off what you need to do in here when you come.
Yes.
So it's like, for some people, it kind of can get so overwhelming, but I feel once you have someone that is talking to you and walking you through it, it just makes it a little bit less stressful, or there's a bit of ease on it. So I kind of like what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knocking it off your list.
What about appointments?
No appointments are needed. You can come by our showroom anytime. And we're fully staffed. So you don't have to book an appointment. You'll always be helped. I feel like the thing about appointments is they're kind of great because if you do need more help, if you do need a bit more help on design, or you need to be walked through the tent process or the rental process, because maybe you haven't done anything or no one in your family has gotten married or anything like that, the appointment, you can kind of give the sales rep a heads up so they can kind of accumulate everything that you need specifically for your day. So a couple shots of Pinterest, you can kind of give them a heads up so they could pull, napkin colors or anything like that. So it's not so, just speeds up the process a little bit. And we know our product.
You kind of have someone on your team pulling and brainstorming
Exactly.
and checking things out for you before you get there. And we're fully staffed. We have a full team that's willing and able to help, but just having someone dedicated to you or planning on that, I think you get an extra layer of service that is complimentary and can be super beneficial.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people with that service, that there's an ease to it. You can call your rep. You can switch things around. You can leave here and, booked our clear rim charger, but you leave and you kind of want the beaded one. You can, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy. We'll switch that out for you. Contact your rep. So the whole process, I feel, when you have a sales rep is so much easier and
and
it's more delightful.
Yes.
It's
And
more
it takes
delightful.
a bit of time.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of time. Like, I think that happens with any design or fashion. Like, if I'm shopping around for whatever it is, clothes for myself, things for my house, it's like you see something and you're like, oh, that would be great with that. I got to go back and get that. And I actually want to return that. So I like what you said of just the ease of switching up things. And we have the space to be inspired, but also the DIY area. Yeah. Let's talk a bit more about the DIY.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
In particular.
I think the DIY area is so great for one specific thing that you can see what your tables are going to look like with all the cutlery, bring together what kind of is up in your head and see if it kind of works on a table and you love it and you like it. You could switch things up. You can also bring anything that you need. We're not going to stop you at the door. More, if you have a centerpiece that you kind of were DIYing, bring it in, kind of play with it, put it on a table, see what it looks like, how big it is, or if you want it smaller or bigger. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think it's a great place that you can start the creativity process of just picking and choosing, eliminating, going back to what you said before, and seeing what actually speaks to you and what you want to continue with.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the rental process. So now you're kind of inspired. You know what you need. You know what you want. You got a quote. What do you need?
Well, first off, all of the rentals are based off of availability. So we have a good amount of everything, but it's not to say that someone can come in and book everything. So as soon as you get a quote, I would kind of your wish list, go through it, see what fits in your budget, what you actually want to go ahead with, what's important to you, what's not. And then start the reservation process. The reservation process is simple. It's a 50% deposit to hold everything. It that doesn't say that you're locked into anything. We do give you time to, figure out numbers closer to and drop numbers. But that's how the reservations your quote would go into a reservation, is with a deposit. And that's kind of easy. And you can do that through your sales rep. You can call in, you can email, like whatever form of communication you want to use, we will get that reservation started for you promptly.
So we don't need to go into all the details, but 50% deposit, that can be a pretty big chunk.
That can be a chunk.
So what does that mean? Is that like, what's the cancellation, or what's the big thing? If I want to get rid of a couple of things, if I need to cancel completely, what are kind of the main points of the cancellation policy? Do you know?
You're putting me in the hot seat here. I should know. I absolutely should know. So you can go, let's talk numbers first. I think that's a big thing with brides, because you have always book for the amount of guests you send invitations to. Don't go lower what you think it's going to be. Always book for the number that you... A
bit of a buffer.
Yes.
You will be grateful.
Yeah. And then a week before, we can drop those numbers as long as it's not by 50%. So if let's say you have 210 people.
Can't cut it in half.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can do it at that time. Then 42 hours before your pickup or delivery, we would then reach out to you again with some tips about how to take care of your rentals, but also to collect the remaining balance. And again, simple enough. We reach out to you. You would send it to us. We kind of take any form of payment. So e-transfers, credit card, all of that. One thing to always remember, though, in this day, as most companies do, is there is a credit card fee when you are wanting to book with us and pay the deposit through credit card. So just keep that in mind. I think a lot of other vendors too, in the wedding industry or event industry do this, it's pretty standard. Yeah. But back to credit cards, or not back, because we're still talking about credit cards, is we always need one on file, though. That's just for security of our rentals and all of that. So you always have to have a credit card on file, but you can, to avoid the credit card fee, you can pay by debit, you can come in, or you can e-transfer us.
One point about the timing, I always say with weddings in particular, it's not due until 72 hours prior, like the final payment and final numbers and stuff. But I always say, do it the week before. You know what you're in the week before. So let's just get it taken care of. And that's more for our clients rather than us, because they just how many people are coming. Of course we can still make a tweak or something if we need to, but get it done, get it paid for. You have so much going on the few days before the wedding. why be stressing about paying a bill at special event
Absolutely.
rentals? So,
and I think that's a great point because I feel like just even if I were to put myself in those shoes, I would kind of wait for the 72 hours, not even thinking that the possibility of, squaring everything away the week before is an option. It's just like, no, that's super flexible. I'll do at that point, but at that time. But I think that is, get that off your plate.
Get it off your
and
plate.
your sales rep can set a text, like a task too, to like follow up with you if you wanted that. So I think we kind of work to everyone's needs, I guess, but also we do have processes.
We
and
are
policy.
a service.
I think
company.
so. I think so.
Okay, so I think that kind of covers everything about quoting, reservations, what's required. One thing I do want to add is it's not reserved until we have your money. That
Absolutely. This is like a round of applause. Absolutely. I think quotes do not hold anything for you.
And I mean, it makes sense. I feel like, but people are always like, can you just hold that for me? I can't.
Yeah.
It's actually like the system, either it's reserved or it's not. It's not an in-between.
Yeah.
So until you have signed, sealed, sent the money, nothing's held for you.
You got it.
And just one other point about inventory, like everything is first come, first serve. On a first come, first serve basis, like you said. But a lot of the items that are really popular, say for instance, a gold Chiavari, we have so many of them, but they're also so popular.
They're so popular.
So it's kind of interesting where the things that are popular, we have a ton of, but there's times where they're all going out.
Right.
So I always say, when you know what you want, just reserve it.
I agree. And like I said, I think our cancellation policy is minimal. I think we work with people. So book it as soon as you know you want it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing I want to touch base on just quickly is special orders. I feel like we have a large enough company. If you really did want it, we could look into bringing something in for you.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is and if we want to bring in more, I feel like
we
can do it. We can
bring
do it.
in a ton of product specifically for,
Absolutely.
I mean, this was a stat like 10 years ago that we brought in over $1 million annually of new inventory. So has that doubled, tripled, quadrupled now? Like, I don't even know.
Well, I have pretty bad spending habits, so you could say, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if whatever it is, we want it. And I think the big picture is if you want it, someone else probably does too.
Absolutely.
And that is what our business is based on. Renting out items multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that kind of covers everything for quotes, the reservations, the process, money, all of that.
Yeah, and I think it gives everyone a good understanding of what they can expect and what. I know that there maybe some are like simple questions, but I feel like sometimes no one really knows.
Delivery, pickup, customer pickup. How does the delivery rates work?
Delivery rates we have a set price for inside Edmonton, and the set price is a window from 9 to 5. So we can deliver the day before and pick up the day after. We only charge you for the day that it's being used. So that's really good to know. So we can deliver and the day before and pick up the day after, and you're not penalized for anything. As long as your venue allows us to do so, and you are flexible with us arriving between those times, it's a great service.
So that's the cheapest option.
That's the cheapest option is a 9 to 5 delivery the day before and the day after. As soon as you start condensing down times and you need specific windows and you need rush delivery or anything on the day of, you're going to start seeing the price of delivery go up because now we're routing to you and your specific needs. It's not just a broad plug it in and do what's best for the route. So as soon as you start taking, giving us specific times, your delivery window goes up. Another thing which we're probably going to get into is late night pickups. Those are quite big for a lot of venues and a lot of couples don't know about. If we have to do a late night pickup, the cost is greater. Because who wants to pick up rentals at 1 a.m. and we're not open. So we kind of have to
bring in a crew,
a crew. There's a truck. There's all of these things.
Unload it, have it ready for the morning.
Absolutely. So once we're getting into that, you'll see the price go up. But a lot of people and a lot of venues don't tell their couples that because I feel like it's just out of sight, out of mind. They think it's just normal. We'll show up and we will
could be a
communicate
deterrent.
that. Pardon?
Could be a deterrent to
yes.
book at a venue.
Absolutely.
Where you've got some hefty before and after charges.
I will say, though, venues in Edmonton try and work with our couples, and we try and work with them. So sometimes it is what it is, and it has to be picked up that night, but maybe the next morning at 6 a.m. So there are options, and I feel like in the summertime, we're on the road all the time. All the time. So that's another cost to consider when booking at a venue is when can we pick up?
Yep.
When does everything need to be taken down? Who's taking down the rentals? All of that good stuff.
So I think big picture, it's just the time frames matter. The
time
greater
frames
the
matter.
time frame, whether
Absolutely.
and same thing like when you can't get into a ballroom, you only have an hour or two to set up. Well, we've got to double, triple the crews going down there, so that costs more money than a couple guys going and they've got all morning.
Exactly.
So I think we do all of it all the time. It's just to be mindful of basically the costs associated and the like what is required to make it all happen. There's
different price points and all of that.
Yeah, there's just more planning.
Yeah, totally. There was one thing I wanted to say and it just slipped my mind. It was to do with deliveries. Oh my gosh. Anyways, let's keep talking, but I totally forget what I was going to say.
Customer pickup and return.
Customer pickup and return it's
a great option.
We're going back to deliveries. It just popped in my mind. Out of town. We go out of town. We can go, if you have a property, you want us to set up a tent, we go out of town. We go out of town and it's just a per kilometer charge. And so that's never ruled out, but also leads me into the customer pickup and return. If you are doing an out of town wedding or event, customer pickup is your best bet, I think. Because you can pull up with a pickup truck, you can pull up with a U-Haul. If someone has a flat deck, all of that, we are equipped to help you load that up and send you on your way.
Yeah.
So great option.
I think it's kind of what you've been touching on of so many points of who we are and what we do. It's like customer pickup is such a great option financially. Like when you are just paying for the rentals and there's no additional labor charges or delivery charges, it can really help with the budget.
Absolutely.
So it's such a great option. But at the same time, if you want full service, you don't want to load the truck. You don't want to unload the truck. You don't want to set up the tables. Our prices are pretty reasonable for the whole thing as well. So we've got it all.
Totally.
And we can do a bit of both on one event. Like sometimes that happens where people can pick it up, but they can't bring it back.
Totally.
And so again, that just helps because I think with tented events out of town in particular, part of the fun and part of the event is preparing for it. Yes. So people are eager to get everything, set it all up.
Yes.
Like you've got cousins and family and everyone there hanging lights and setting up tables and it's so fun and great and part of the event. But when the wedding's over, it's not as fun.
The next morning is not as fun. But I feel like it's so great to work with us because you have all of these options in front of you. Whatever is easiest for you and what you've envisioned your weekday looking like. Another thing to keep in mind is just like deliveries, you can pick up on Friday and return Monday for that same day rate. So 1 day rate would apply for if you're only using it for 1 day rate. So that's something to consider. And we're quite flexible if you need to pick up on Thursday and return Tuesday because you're out of town. So
yeah, we're pretty flexible with that. And also the rental rates. So rental rates that you see on our website are what we call a 1 day rate.
You got it.
And then they're based on the amount of days that your event is. Exactly. So, that's the deal with that.
That's the deal with that.
Pick up all day windows again. What are our hours in the summer? 9 a.m.
For pick up and drop off?
When are we open?
So 9 to 5. Saturdays we're open 10 to 4. And then Sundays you can return, but you're only able to return. You can't pick up anything and we're open noon to 4. And I mean, sometimes these fluctuate a little bit. And I feel like in the summertime, there's always someone here. So we can, when you're in a bind or anything like that, we can help out.
Yeah. Rush deliveries.
Which are more and more popular, Carolyn.
People get in a panic,
I feel like people get in a panic or they might just like forget something or you know how it goes.
Do you think part of it is just that there is like nowadays it's like, no, you can get something at the drop of a hat delivered. So the mentality is shifting a little bit. Like, you know what? I need this. I'm going to just see if it can happen.
Absolutely.
And most of the time we can make it happen.
Yeah. I feel like people, I don't know. I feel like when there is last minute, it's because they're quick decisions. So it's easy. Does that make sense? But
yes,
it does come at a cost.
Comes at a cost.
Comes at a cost. So, you know, if you want to rush delivery, there is fees associated with it because we might not have a truck. Like we're dropping everything to go kind of deal with. Exactly. So there's lots of logistics or behind the scene logistics that one wouldn't maybe understand. But yeah, I feel like if you want it, we will get it to you. But there is a cost associated because we're pretty much stopping production to work how we're getting this to you. Yeah. But that's why customer pickup is so great because you can just come in and pick it up. You can even like come in and be like frantic with Julia, our receptionist. She will help you and she's great, but she'll pull it all together for you and you'll just kind of wait 15, 20 minutes and you're on your way. Yep. So both options are great and they're available.
Yeah. We like to have our product what we call rental ready. So that we have it and it's ready to go at the drop of a hat when it's required. Yeah. So, all right. Should we get into tented weddings? Tented events. Yes,
let's do it. I feel like there's just like all the processes that we just went over. There's so much to dive into with a tented wedding. There's so many logistics and what you need and what we would recommend that people don't even think about.
Let's dive in. Let's start with the big thing. Are tented weddings expensive?
Yes. But it also depends like what your style is, but you are building a venue. Like you're building a venue. You need lighting, you need power, you need a tent, you need tables, chairs, linens. How are you serving your food? Like it is endless what you need. Mm-hmm. And what you want to pour into. Some people are good with just, you know, a potluck and other people want, you know, full service. So there's obviously, I don't know. There is some people, no?
Potlucks for weddings?
You've never heard that?
I mean,
there's like a handful
family reunions.
It's kind of like the same thing. There's a handful of people. It's when I'm just showing you the drastic difference between the two.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, I feel like there's different options for every type of budget or need that one couple needs.
So step number one is what size a tent and what you have room for and like a site check and what is that? So,
well, I feel like a lot of people, I think a lot of brides and grooms or couples or whatever, they think they forget that they need room for other things than just their guests. For instance, you need room for a dance floor if that's important. You need room for your buffet. You need room for a cake table. Like all of these things I think are sometimes not thought about right off the top. It's like, no, I have 150 guests. I just need them to eat underneath the tent. Well, you kind of have to house everything. So we would just take your numbers and kind of do up a CAD and figure out what's the best tent size for you and tent style.
Yeah. And I guess just to talk about like the actual, like where the tent is going and what room, like how much space there is and like the configuration, because all of that kind of trickles down to sometimes there's a ton of flat space for multiple tents or a massive tent, but sometimes there's not. So in the planning process, you have to adjust for that. Like
absolutely.
If you have seating for 100 guests, but there's just not room for it, well, then you gotta
pivot. We offer a site checks. So it's great for our team to go down and measure your yard and give you the options of what will fit in the backyard. Yep. So if it is multiple tents, if it is a smaller wedding, you can do multiple tents and we can kind of, you know, put a 20 by 20 frame tent over here and then we can have a buffet tent somewhere else on the grounds. But if it's a pretty wide open space, we would just come in and measure the actual tent that's needed. Another good thing to keep in mind is we do require an Alberta one call. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's a line locate to make sure we're not hitting anything. And if you guys have any plans, like if the homeowner has any plans or irrigation lines, we'll also need to know that so we're not hitting anything. If there are lots of lines underneath and we can't stake the tent into the ground, that's why we would need the Alberta one call because we're going about 3 feet into the ground. We would just weight the tent. It is an additional cost, but it's not It's an option. Yeah, it's an option.
Yep. And it is required.
It's required. If you don't have it, we won't dig.
We won't dig.
We won't stake into the grass, and it's not one to forget about because it's not easy. If you forget about it, it is not easy to get someone down there.
It is not. They don't
easy.
do quick rush deliveries,
and unfortunately, we can't help you with that. We don't run the line locate team. It is your responsibility, and we just have so much other things going on that we can't. We do follow up with you and remind you for sure. We remind you, I think, a month out, just making sure you have all the documentation, and we keep reminding you. But it is up to the client to have that, and if you don't have it, we can't stake. It's just safety for our team. That is, the ones like sledgehammering the stakes into the ground, but it's also for your property and the homeowners and making sure we don't hit anything that could potentially, I remember one time I think we hit like a water line because it wasn't marked, and that was a disaster. Mm-hmm. It was a disaster because how are your guests now sitting in this wet mess? So it's important. Yeah, it's important.
And it's very easy to do. It's a free service.
Absolutely.
And tented weddings are usually not planned the week or two before, or tented events. So it's pretty seamless. It's just something that has to get done. You call them, they come out, they give you a ticket number, you send us the ticket, we have it on file. It's really not that big a deal.
Nope, not big a deal, but it's just something that people sometimes forget about.
Yeah. So let's talk about what people forget about. What are people like? What are the oversights of planning a tented event?
Ooh, there's I feel like there's a good chunk.
Okay,
let's dive into toilets first. I think toilets are a big one. No one wants to use, if you're on a property, you have one bathroom.
Brides are not dreaming about bathrooms.
Exactly. So I feel like bathrooms for all your guests, I think you need to kind of look and venture out into that area of, are we doing a trailer or a washroom trailer?
Are you okay with porta potties?
That's also an option though.
There's
some nice way. You could dress them up. I don't know.
How would you dress up a porta potty?
I've seen some things on Pinterest, put like a tent over it. And anyways, long story short, either way, I think you need to consider bathrooms for your guests and an appropriate amount of bathrooms because everyone does use facilities during a wedding. So the larger the wedding, the more toilets you'll need.
Yep. What else?
Parking. Parking's a big one. Where are all your guests parking? Because if you have 150 guests, you're going to have a lot of cars. So where are they parking? How are you getting them there? All of those things don't forget about because it's something that a venue would have. So if you're creating your own venue, you need to keep that in mind.
Yep.
Do you have any? Those are my two top ones. I think also with like lighting and there's all of these other things, but any big things outside of like just the tent?
I think we kind of touched on it, but I think like the space required for caterers.
Right.
So the equipment that is required, but just also the space. They need a prep area. They need sinks. They need a lot of things. Totally. And so you need the space for it and you need the facility. Absolutely. So it just needs to be planned out. Is that happening in the main tent? Do you have a garage that can be used? Can they use your kitchen? Is there space there? So just, again, it's just another thing that it's not that big a deal, but when it's forgotten,
right,
and there's nothing, big deal.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point. Like, where are they going and what do they bring too? Like, I think that's a great question for all couples to ask the caterer. Or do they bring their own tables for the buffet? Do they have a pop-up tent? All of those things need to be asked so you can properly have everything that they need.
Yeah. How come you didn't have a tented wedding?
Oh, goodness. I feel like at the time I fell in love with my venue. So it was different. And I didn't get married in Alberta. So it was a bit different.
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of the main reasons that people have tented weddings is they want to get married on their family property.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people would like to have a tented wedding, which you might be one of those, but you don't actually have the property. So it's an interesting...
Absolutely. And I think the property is the big thing. If you have the property, that is amazing. But there is something about a tented wedding.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What's great about a tented?
I feel like it's just, as much as there's so much planning in it, I find it's quite laid back. There's an ease to having everyone on your family's property and in and out, and the chance that you also get for really creating this world of, I don't know, like what you've envisioned and how you want to decorate it. And do you want, to have your tent draped in linen and chandeliers hanging, or do you want just some string lights and some really nice linen? I just feel like tented weddings are pretty spectacular. And the different type of tents that we have really can create anything that you need, anything you want. What is your favorite tent, Carolyn? Let's talk about tent styles for 2 seconds. Okay. What tent styles do we have?
Well, my favorite tent, I don't know, maybe like a 34 hex.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. I like the 34 hex. A clear top or white?
No, I do not.
Really? I think our 34 hex clear top is quite.
I mean, it is.
It's quite beautiful.
It is. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
But I'll take
You'll take the
white top. Yep.
Yep.
Your favorite tent?
Definitely a pole tent. I think, I think you've even heard me say this, to drive up to a property
A pole tent.
and see those peaks with the white flags, I feel like gives you, it gives me chills a little bit. It's there it is. I'm going there. That is where this event is happening.
Yeah, you create such a, and just here, when you
Dramatic.
were talking about.
I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it.
Just talking about like tented events and just the buzz that happens like the days leading up to it and being on site and all the rentals and the tent going up and like it's the whole process that's quite spectacular, where that doesn't happen in really great venues, which have their place, and
Absolutely.
we love those and they're so great for so many reasons. But yeah, it definitely, you get a bigger thing.
Yeah,
it's more than just the wedding day. It's like the whole process that I think you create so many memories, and it's so fun.
And it's so cool because I feel like a lot of couples don't even know what it means to set up a tent. They have no idea what a truck of rentals looks like.
Yeah.
They just don't, they're not in it like we are. So they just don't know how it all comes together.
Yeah.
And it is crazy how we can pull off that with our team and our product. I feel like it just speaks for itself.
Yeah. Let's dive into the different tent options though.
Yes. So we have, I guess, three
main ones.
Three main ones if we are setting up. So that would be your frame tent, your pole tent, and your clear span. So frame tents are kind of smaller. They're for, micro weddings or backyard barbecues or something like that. So those are really...
Or add-ons. Like add-ons for like the dance for you.
Or the caterers you were talking about. Yeah. I think we just overlapped at the same time, Carolyn.
About that bit.
But it's great when you don't have the big property. Those tents are great because you can piece together maybe different food stations or, different eating areas. So those are great for that.
But I mean, they're the workhorse of tents for us.
Yes, they go, oh my gosh.
They're everywhere. And covered a little area here, there. Yeah,
and they're easy. And the pole tents, my favorite. They come in all different sizes. So I light up everyone. The smallest series is 30 wide, and the biggest is our 60 wide. And they kind of go in any length. So that we can go, I think, up to 240 if you really want a big tent. So they have beautiful,
What is your favorite width? Do you like a 40 wide? Yeah.
40 wide is my favorite width. It's rectangular. It's just a good size. With the 60 wide, so let's talk about pole tents first. Pole tents, you have poles inside. So you do have to kind of work around these poles, and there's one every 20 feet in the middle. But they're beautiful. They're high. We can drape them. They can be a part of your decor is basically what I want to say about that. They can hold floral arrangements, lighting, all of these things, and you can create...
they give you something to work off of.
You got it. Yeah. So that is that. But with the 60 wide, you kind of have two poles in the middle every 20 feet because of the width. So... that's why I would suggest the 40 wide if you could stick with the 40 wide, at least for a wedding. But I've seen some beautiful...
But I thought you liked the poles.
I do, but sometimes it gets expensive when you're covering them all up. And
totally. But in the 60 wide, they're much more intrusive because there's two of them.
And depending on how long you go, there's...
Yeah, you really notice them. We're in the 40s. They're just like...
It's just like dollar signs. How many poles do we need to cover? So, but I've also seen some wedding planners in Edmonton take a 60 wide and do some amazing things with it.
But I mean, there's perks to a 60 wide. Yeah. It's wider. Like a 40 wide can get really long and narrow if you're going too long, where a 60 wide, you get a better shape or a better flow. So again, depends what you need. Depends what the property, depends what's happening, depends on the floor plan.
And just thinking about it, I should recommend the 60 by 60 for big weddings, because I feel like you could really do some wicked floor plans, like really unique seating all the way around the dance floor. So I'm not saying, scrap them. I'm saying maybe work with the poles and make that, your statement.
Yeah. So,
no, you go.
I was way off.
The last tent we have is the clear span. And I think that's top of the line. top of the line. You know, I want to call her a she, but no.
She's a structure.
She's a structure. This clear span it's just open. So even though let's compare sizes. So a 40-40 pole tent and a 40 clear span, I feel like you're going to feel like you have a little bit more room in the clear span because it's an A-frame. So there's nothing supporting anything in the middle. We're building it like a house. So there's endless options in that tent. It is super cool. And because they're built in bays, you can do, you know, some sections with a clear top and white top. So maybe over the dance floor, you want to have clear so you can see the stars if you're out in the country. And then everything else is shaded with a white top. So they're like a chameleon. I guess like a chameleon, is that right? Like they can change. They can kind of be anything you want.
They're just such a blank canvas.
Exactly.
Where I think with the frame tent, which is also what's appealing about a frame tent, is you already have a bit of a feel, a bit happening, where a clear span is just this sturdy, awesome, serious structure that you can hang, drape, change the top. The walls are higher.
It's all around just like it's like the top of the line.
Top of the line.
Top of the line.
Top of the line.
So those are your three
main
styles.
Options.
Three main options. And each one is great and you can style them however you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to circle back to what is forgotten about. So I think this is something that is actually just completely forgotten. That is the exterior of the tent.
Yes.
I feel like there's so much poured into chandeliers, draping poles, tabletop, like everything. Right. And there's no like walkway. And people love to throw out picnic tables and random pots of flowers. I think that, I mean, again, it costs money, it's planning, it's time, but I think you can really elevate your event by creating a intentional outdoor space, which I love all those things. Absolutely. Pots of flowers, picnic tables, but there should be some forethought into what that looks like. And it's part of the decor. It's part of the event as well.
One thing I think all of those are great points. Let's take pole tent, for instance. So pole tents are all tension. So we are pulling guide wires quite far from the tent wall. I think we're going 4 feet out with heavy-duty ratchet straps that are staked into the ground. So I've seen a lot of people use flower pots, and when they're consistent all the way lined up, hello.
It's awesome.
It's so beautiful. Or trees, just so when it gets dark, people are not tripping over them.
Yep.
So that is the exterior. That, and also something to keep in mind is, where is your like entranceway? What can we do? You know, do we do a walkway leading up to the tent? What is outside versus inside? Where is your welcome table? And what can we do to dress up the entrance of the tent?
Yeah.
So those are all great things. I've seen a lot of floral all the way around. I've seen walkways where they've built like a wall, like almost like a walkway, and they've had photos hanging on either side. So the more creative you can do, can go with like the walkways and the outside. Yeah. I feel like just brings a little bit of oomph. Like that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's actually something that would set apart like an event, like a wedding planner planned tented wedding from that is intentional and that is planned for. Yeah. It's not an afterthought.
Totally. Clear spans, they don't have that because they're kind of a structure and they're built like A-frames, and so it's not built off tension. We can stake right where the legs are. So there's no issues there, but doesn't mean you can't dress it up. Doesn't mean you can't have pots and a beautiful entrance that is draped. So
yeah, you can do that a bit more like a actual entrance to a building or something. It's like some big flower pots.
You got it.
All right. Backup plans. You wanted to talk backup plans. Ceremonies in particular. What would you recommend? If a bride came in and said, should I have a backup plan? Should I just rent a tent? What would you say to them? So my opinion is make a plan.
Mm-hmm. And what would that plan be?
I don't like a backup plan. This is Alberta.
Yeah.
We're not Southern California. So for me and how I like to operate, which I understand this is not everyone, and there's a lot of outdoor beautiful weddings, and that's a risk that a lot of people take, and it's for some people. For me personally, I like making a plan.
Yeah.
I like not having to think about it, because what I think is so annoying about a backup plan is you are constantly negotiating and deciding if you're pulling the plug on the backup plan.
And it's just worried. Like, you're worried.
Yes.
You're always just worried.
And you have to pull it hours before.
Yeah.
And so I don't like backup plans for outdoor ceremonies, and I like making a plan and sticking with a plan.
That's great. What would your plan be?
Well, I loved, like, what comes to mind right now when we're talking. Do you remember you did like a great pole tented wedding, and you had a frame tent out by the lake, and they set it up. I don't even think it held all of the people. I think maybe the intent was the bride and groom were going to be outside, or I forget exactly that, but I think that's the way to go. Set up the tent. The tents are beautiful. That is, it's still outdoor. Have all the walls off, but then then you can set up your chairs and you can get it all ready. You don't have to clean them.
Totally. I like that plan. I feel like there's a lot of different angles you could go at plan B, or just making the decision of what would happen. Another great option, which is great and it's not great, is if they're really set on having the wedding outside with nothing over them, because I do get the appeal of it.
Yeah.
If you have a beautiful property and your ceremony is just 20, 30 minutes long, I love that. But you have to think of, if it does rain and it pours, what are you doing? So some people will just honestly have it underneath the tent without moving anything. So if it does rain, everyone just sits where they're supposed to be seated. The reason, I mean, it's a backup plan, and if that's what you're committing to doing, it is what it is. But there's also the downside of walking into the reception tent. You don't get that grand entrance on that side of it. You don't get the poshness, but I guess you still get it because you walk in just for the ceremony. So that is an option.
It's a bit of a...
Another option is a clear top tent. If you kind of want, if you're very worried, especially if depending on the month you're getting married, that's also a big one too. Maybe consider a clear top tent.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not for everyone, like you said, or maybe it is to house everyone. So you still feel like you're outdoors, but you have coverage. Also, you have to have the space.
Yeah. One thing I think to keep in mind is, because rain is a problem, but if it's like broad,
stinking
noon,
hot,
like sun, that's not enjoyable either, especially when you're in a suit or fancy clothes. No. So I think it's just something to consider. Like, sure, a ceremony at like 9:30 or 10 p.m. when the sun is setting and there's a little breeze going can be beautiful outside, but this is Alberta.
Totally. And I feel like I tell that to everyone, because some people want their reception outside, and like, no one wants to, like, full face of makeup, suits, all of these things. No one wants to be cooking in the sun. Yeah. Give them some shade, give them comfortable, like, make them comfortable. And yeah.
I think those are some of Lars's famous, like, if you're planning an outdoor event in Alberta, you need it for something. If it's not the rain, it's the sun. If it's not the sun, it's the wind. Like, you need some type of
absolutely
shelter and structure. So, but I think, yes, because ceremonies are so short, and the appeal of just being outside and having great photos, but I think it's a pretty high risk.
It is, but I feel like obviously something's working. Yeah, because a lot of people, like, they plan this, and all of the options are on the table, and most of them still get married outside. Yeah. Maybe you're just flexible on the time. If it does rain, maybe push it back a little bit. Like, there's lots of things to do. And it does happen. Yeah. People get married every weekend, and multiple weddings are outside. So it's not something to deter you, but it is something you need to think about. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And I think I like what you said, just having all of these options of like being, like, negotiating on the time, like whether if it needs to be moved up a little bit, if it needs to be moved back a little bit. Totally. And like, I think you have to have a certain amount of ease about that. Absolutely. And if it's way too sunny, well, that's okay. If it's too windy, well, that's okay. Like, you can't expect to have this regulated environment when it's all outside.
I totally agree. You have to be able to pivot and be okay with it, because lots of things could and probably will go wrong. Really, like, things do happen. Even just at a wedding venue, things go wrong. So you can imagine.
It's real life.
It's real life. It's real life. So things will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I recommend a wedding planner. They'll take care of everything for you.
Yeah.
Like, if you can do that, that's super cool.
Well, yeah, you just have someone dealing with that and, like, helping you make decisions and talk about, like, even if it is a pretty simple wedding, if you do need to pivot and make a plan, like we're having it in the tent, just making that happen, directing traffic, telling guests where to be and how to be, like,
they got that covered for you. They really will.
And on your team.
And I feel like they advocate, like they're advocates for you. So they will do what they think is best for you.
Okay, decor. Let's talk decor.
Where do you even start with decor in a tent? Where would you start? If someone came in and was like, I'm here to plan my tented wedding, I need decor for it. Where would you start?
Well, I think there's two things. You need to understand a little bit of the look and feel.
Absolutely.
So it's like, are you wanting it to be kind of cash,
right,
and lots of lights, or are you wanting something quite posh?
Right.
So I think number one is understanding a bit of the direction and the feel.
Right.
And number two is the money.
I know. I was just going to say budget is pretty big.
And like, I don't think I get fixated on a number by any means, but one of the joys of tented weddings is it can really fluctuate.
Absolutely.
So you kind of got to know, are we talking $1,000? Are we talking $10,000, $20,000, $30,000?
Which makes a huge difference because we don't want to, like, we kind of want to work with the budget. And I feel like we have the best understanding of our rental inventory. So we can guide you in the right direction that is most suitable for your budget and your needs if we have those two things.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something, never be embarrassed about your budget.
No, and I don't know why, I don't know why people are.
I know.
Like, it's more just for what can we offer you? Yeah. What's the best, what can we offer you?
Yeah. I think often designers see it as a challenge and I think that's some of the times that you come out with the best things. And I think that's when we all pull from each other where it's like, hey, this is what we've got. I'm already over budget. I need it. And so it really makes you be creative, and often things are really customized, when you're working within a budget.
And sometimes people don't even realize that it could just be a switch of a linen texture that really saves you money.
Yes.
So knowing your budget is big.
Yes.
Because we can then work with it and give you exactly what you want for what you want to pay.
What you want to pay.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's just another huge benefit of special event rentals is our product range. So absolutely. Everything, you talked about the linens, but from chairs to linens to forks, like everything, there is such a range. So again, understanding and knowing the feel or the look of the wedding, then you can pinpoint these items that can kind of give you that. And some things, like sometimes on a budget, I think that's always interesting when things are a lower budget and you have the most expensive fork. Like it's interesting how everything comes together. It's just where you
kind of allocate those different rental products and how you customize their needs.
Yeah. And so, I guess I feel like the budget thing makes people uncomfortable, but it's not something to be uncomfortable about. It's just a starting point and just something I'm thinking of. When I was working on the design for my personal house, like I had worked with two different designers, like just had some meetings with them, and I forget exactly how much I was spending, but one of them, like, it was like, okay, I have $10,000. And she was like, okay, great. That was it. I worked with someone else. I have $10,000. Great. We can do something great for that. So it's like,
there's such a difference.
Yeah. It's like, you can view it however you want. And just, I think that whatever your budget is, we can do something great for that.
Absolutely.
And even remember that when I did with the folding chairs and how it, like the floor plan was so interesting and great. And it's like, that looks great.
And you had just like, I think at that one you had like a colored goblet.
Yes.
I think, and I just feel like it's bang on what you're saying is budget does matter. It's not something to be embarrassed about, but we can really help you and we can give you that elevated look even on a budget.
Yeah. And I think it's especially important with tented weddings because the decor is important, but you also need the stuff, where I think a lot of times with weddings, we're working with decor only, where the fork is an option. I keep using the fork, but like where you need the stuff. So the budget is important.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't even have to be exactly, because I think sometimes lots of people are like, I don't know my budget. It's like, okay, well,
and I feel like you're going to run into that, but as long as they give you something. Something like, hey, you know what? I don't want to spend, I don't love decor that much. I have a small budget. Yeah. We need a starting point somewhere. We need to feel you out and kind of get a sense of what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with and all of that. Yeah. So it's a journey, but we'll get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just talk about like decor. I guess it's a huge spectrum when it comes to tents. You can they're so customizable. Mm-hmm. You can really do so much. I want to chat about lighting. Lighting is something, kind of going back to the forks, it's something that's needed. Mm-hmm. You need lighting in there. So the options for lighting is huge. And I don't feel like it's forgotten, the lighting at all. No. But it's not something when I think decor, is that really going to impact what my tent's going to look like? And yes, it is.
Absolutely.
100%. It definitely matters what you're putting in that tent, and the direction and feel you're going to go for. Like, are you going to go vintage lights, which is like string lights? Are you going to do chandeliers? It transforms that whole space.
Yes.
Another thing that will do that is draping. Mm-hmm. Are we draping your poles? Are you going to cover them with floral? What's going to go around the tent? So it's not just what's going on your tables and chairs. It's literally everything. Mm-hmm. From your entranceway all the way in. Mm-hmm. What kind of walls do you want? Because the tents have walls. And I always recommend you have our team put up the walls.
Put up the walls.
Put the walls up. You can easily take them down if needed, but it's time consuming. So have our team put up the walls, and then the great thing about that is, which I think people forget until it's at the time when you don't have the walls up, is you can set up your tent. You can put your linens on, shut all the windows. We're not getting things in there. There's no bugs, all of that. So have our team put up the walls, for sure, 100%.
I'm with you on that. Put up the walls.
Absolutely. So I feel there's just so much to talk about, but lighting is a big one. Draping is a big one, I find, and a lot of people want that for their tent. And again, that can also be customizable to budget, right? What is the biggest bang for your buck?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, we're able to really customize it, because I think the tent draping, like, I think our minds initially go to like something super fabulous and posh, where we do it in like pretty cash things as well. And it just changes the look and feel, and it doesn't need to be so all out. But again, because it's a tent and you can just kind of customize, do a bit of a feature area, just do the poles. Right. So again, working with whatever the budget is, but to achieve the end goal.
And I think things to keep in mind, or I think you should have, like, what I guess I'm trying to say is special areas you can really elaborate on them. Like, so what I'm thinking is bar areas. You need a bar.
You just love the bar area.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? I mean, it is what that's where you're hanging out at a wedding, most weddings. You're hanging out there. So what are you doing for a bar? Is it functional? I feel like it has to be functional. You have to, the bartenders are coming in. They need somewhere to put ice. You're outdoors. Do you have power? Can we put a fridge out there? Are you putting all your drinks on ice? All of these things people don't think about. So all areas need to be considered. It's not just what you're hanging above, what's on the tables. It is so complex. And the great thing is, when you come to our team, we'll walk you through it and we'll make it super easy. We'll walk you through it, and we'll give you all the options.
We just need to know the information.
You need to know the information.
We never talked about power. And so
power is big.
And again, it's not that big a deal. We just need to know what we're working with, and we need to know what we're doing, because what's required for the bars, what's required for the caterers, what's required for the lighting, all of that, because you got to have.
We need power.
We need power.
So, oftentimes I recommend if we're out somewhere and we can't pull from the house, which pulling from the house is fine and we'll make do, but lots of the times we're blowing breakers.
Exactly.
Left, right, and center. And who wants to deal with that when it's showtime? I recommend third parties. Bring in a generator if you can. They service it. They can, it's just, I guess, an ease.
Yep.
But some people have their own generators, or they do have a different power outlet on the property. So again, we can work with anything, but having a third party come in and just giving you all of the power requirements you need, there's a bit of ease to that.
Yeah, then you have nobody that needs to deal with it.
You got it.
But I mean, I think often it's a bit of everything. We're pulling from the house for this. We're pulling from that for this. We got a generator for this. Like, I think that's probably what happens most of the time.
And I feel like when you're on site, you kind of run into all of these things. So having...
Yeah. And the nice thing about on people's property is you usually have handy people around.
Absolutely.
Where they know how to deal with this stuff. Where
I can't say enough good things about all of the people I've helped who attended weddings. Like being on their property. We're a team, I feel. It's not we're helping each other.
Snacks.
Exactly. People, let me get the power. I have an extra extension. Like it is like it's a team effort. And I quite love that about walking into a property and having our tents go up. It's a bit of a team, and
they're always so hospitable.
Always, and everyone just appreciates each other.
Yep.
Everyone is kind of working together and making this tent go up, because I feel like, back to what we were saying before, there's a lot of things that are going to be unseen or forgotten about, so I love that about a tented wedding.
Yeah.
Which drives me into talking about a little bit about services, about SCR, and what we can do. I think we're a pretty big help.
Oh,
if you can if you can have us, I would say have us.
Have us
100%. And when I talk about that, I'm more talking about a decor specialist. So that would be a couple people here are decor specialists, and they can kind of walk you through, and they can really be your sales rep, but they can also go on site and set up everything for you.
Yeah.
Because you've been working with them for how long?
Totally.
They know what you want. They know how to execute it, and they will make it happen, and you don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's a la carte, so you can have anything done. But what always works out is we do the hard set. Let us do all the hard stuff. Let's do the lighting. Let's do your draping. Let's do, putting up the tent, all of that. And then you take care of the little stuff. Because I feel like there's a vibe about a tented wedding sometimes where they do want to be involved. The couple wants to be involved, and their family wants to be involved. So maybe you do the table settings and all of that. But have us do the hard set.
I agree.
If it's an option for you, have us do the hard set. It goes up. We just know what we're doing. Have us do it.
Yeah. And it's fun to like sit and fold napkins and do that. But even at that, it's like once you get to 50, it's not that fun anymore.
No.
So
it's not fun. Or even just knowing where to start the power for the lighting, or how you're all of these things are just, it's a lot when you're dealing with numbers, big, large numbers. So if you can have us do it, have us do it.
Yep.
Absolutely. That there's such an ease with that.
Absolutely. It makes the whole thing more enjoyable, and you're able to just enjoy the process more and be more hands-on with the fun things that you want to be hands-on with.
Exactly. So we kind of can do it all.
Yeah.
We have the team, we have people in place that can help any couple.
Yep. So decor, floor plans, linens, chairs, is there anything that you want to expand on?
Well, I was going to say no, but then you brought up floor plan, and it got me excited.
Okay.
I think, well, you know me. I love a good floor plan. I love when it's interesting. I love mixing rounds and recs. I love kind of a challenge for fitting people into maybe a smaller tent. But I think floor plans are important, especially when it comes to a tented wedding, where the bar is, where your dance floor is located,
it's so important,
right?
For two reasons. I think the fun part of it is an interesting floor plan. It makes it beautiful. Like it gives it such interest. But the other thing is it needs to work. Like there needs to be flow. There needs to be function, and people so I think, a well-designed and thought-out floor plan can really change the setup.
Yeah.
Like if you start fussing and farting with that on site and moving tables and chairs and back and forth and whatever, where you can have that all planned out. Yes, you need to tweak things on site. Absolutely. But when you've got the bones laid out, that makes the setup run so much smoother.
Totally. One thing I love, I guess, about a couple when they come in and they're talking to me about a tented wedding is the floor plan. I feel like in their minds, it's basic round tables with chairs. And then we get to talking. It's like, no, let's throw some recs in there. Let's throw some harvest tables in there with, round tables with linen. And they just you can see them go from meh to oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is something. And they're starting to talk to me about where they're putting their families and all of these things. So it really gets them excited when they can visualize and they can see everything in front of them with a CAD, and showing them something that is outside of the box or wasn't even a thought in their mind of mixing and creating this functional creative floor plan. So that's one of the things I love about is when they get excited about it and they start talking to you, well, can you move the podium over a little bit? Or, you know what I mean? They just, it all comes to life when you can see it and you can feel it. And
totally.
So that's super cool when you come in here. It's just another perk that we offer. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
So floor plans, I feel like everything's important with a tent wedding, but floor plan is,
it's,
And making sure the buffet is by the catering tent and making sure the bar is close to them or close to the garage where all the beer or wine or pop, like where is it being stored and how is it being cooled? So just thinking all of that. It's logistics and it's not always fun stuff, but it all needs to be thought about.
Yeah. And you can, like, it's okay to have some tight spots when they're intentionally placed, but if that's right by the bar, that's not going to be great. So you can kind of work out those kinks beforehand.
And another thing is nothing's set in stone.
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone. So it's not like once it's on the floor plan, that's where it has to go. There is, with tented weddings, there is an ease of just kind of winging it a day of if we don't like where the the tables are placed, or we need to move it down a little bit, or bar needs to change. That is all very doable.
Yep.
Yeah. More work for everyone, but doable. It's not saying we're going to pick up the tent and move it, but if we need a little shift, if we need to just scoot everything down, we can do so. Yeah. So floor plans are great, and design concepts, and just coming in here and talking to our rental experts and tent experts and having a site check and going through the whole process with us is exciting.
It's exciting.
And there's an ease to it.
Those are kind of the big things with the decor. But then once you get into like linens and chairs, you basically can do anything and everything.
Anything you want. There's endless options here. Yeah. You want a donut machine? We got it. You got like a popcorn station.
Wall? We got it.
Exactly. So I feel like we're here to help. And it's a pretty cool process, though.
It is.
It's very...
How long do you think people need to plan a tented wedding?
Like in advance? Like the whole shebang?
Yeah. Like if I wanted to plan a tented wedding for this fall, do you think I'm too late?
No, I don't think you're ever too late. The stress levels, your stress, though, is going to go... There's just too much to think about. I say a good year is perfect. Like, starting to figure out what you want, going through the quoting process, seeing all your options, coming in here, picking out your wish list, narrowing it all down, and then closer to reconnecting with us for all the last minute stuff, adjusting numbers, all of this. I think a year is good. But you don't need to book at a year. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Start wrapping your head around it.
Exactly. So I would say a good year. But we've done it before, Carolyn. We can pull off a tented wedding 2 weeks out. Do it
next month. Yeah, a couple of weeks.
As long as we have people that can make decisions and
people making decisions. And I think if you're last minute like that, lean into your team, lean into us.
Absolutely. And we can make it happen.
You got a year, you got a month. No problem. All right.
Well, I think we can wrap this one up. And we are done. And I'm so happy we got to talk about that. And until next time, see you later.
Thanks for listening to the Special Event Rental Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to never miss an episode.